everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Sparks Entertainment and Art, where we have so much fun talking with so many interesting people, musicians, fans, everyone, about their views on Sparks and their amazing career and all the things they've accomplished. And today we are really lucky because we have with us a very special guest, Mr. David Kendrick. And David was the drummer during the 1980s period of Sparks, which is one that we haven't really covered as much as I want to on this show. So this is a great way to start doing that. And I am really excited because, as people, most of you probably know by now, I'm a drummer myself. And so what we're going to talk about is Sparks in the 80s a little bit, but then we're going to also discuss the drumming of Sparks, which is so unique. And I can't wait to hear all the things that David has to say. And David, does that give you a good introduction?
Sure. Yeah. I would just like to say, I mean, I grew up an Anglophile, loving music, and really, I very early in my life, that's all I ever wanted to do was be in bands, play drums. And after the British invasion stuff in the early 70s, I mean, the groups I like were still English, kind of art rock period, if you will, Roxy music. And by that time, the males were, in my mind, kind of an English group. They had that band. So I was very into them and influenced by them. And I guess one thing about music is like you literally can start off just liking something and end up a couple years later working with those very same people and being part of that project that you started off just listening to in your room or whatever. And I mean, so for me, and I go to the couple groups, Sparks and later Devo, being able to do that was like extremely satisfying and moving for me. Yeah.
Sounds like you were a pretty deep fan, even back when they were doing what they were doing in the UK before they came to LA.
Yeah, I actually knew about woofer and tweeters. In high school, I was playing in a group. One of the guys' dads got promo records from Warner Brothers. So I heard woofer and tweeters and loved Whippings and Apologies. And Here Comes Bob lyrically was a huge thing for them. I mean, it's no surprise, but I mean, the Ron Mail lyric is from an extremely distinctive viewpoint in the universe. Uh, Even when he is writing about characters, which he almost always, a lot of times he is. Um, but the English band really just got me. I mean, just style wise and sound wise, and they're kind of hyper arranged, and I mean, just the lyric topics. Like every single song is its kind of its own universe. So I saw them live in Chicago once in 74 or 5, right before I moved to Los Angeles. Uh, and that was a very important show for me. It just showed,
And
they
that
weren't
was the propaganda
radio.
tour.
That was the propaganda
Got
tour,
it.
I'm
Got
pretty
it.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah. At the Riviera Theater. And weirdly, that was one of the first times I met the woman who's now my wife, too. So there's other issues going on. But anyway, so when I moved out here, I had to Los Angeles, I had joined bands and gone through a couple. Uh, and I met Ron and Russell hanging out at a place close to where I live, which is called the Farmers Market, which had one of the only espresso machines in Los Angeles. It was cafe, like European cafe style. And it had an espresso machine outside, tables, and they hung out there as they're wont to do, like on a daily basis, as did I and my friend Les. And I knew who they were and was super excited. They were very approachable, and we just talked about movies and cultural stuff mostly. And I was in a group called Bates Motel at the time, and we were going to invite them to want to produce us. But they were just coming off the Marauder period of Terminal Jive, which was not their favorite point. I think they wanted to have a band again and feel uh, more in the rock world. Um, and instead of them wanting to produce Bates Motel, they asked us to be Sparks. So I was like, oh my God, this was an utter dream come true.
Well, that was a match made in heaven, and I'm really glad that you told that story because it's a great way to set the context. And
Yeah.
you had said in your opening remarks that how lucky you were to be able to be in a band that you loved and listened to. That's a unique experience, and that must be really something special. And you've indicated that's happened a couple times.
Yeah, I mean, my taste in music has always been pretty, well, I don't know, left of center, whatever, just bands that are very distinctive. And I've had a weird run of playing with sets of brothers. Devo was two sets and the Mabels were one set. But yeah, I mean, it was like no other band is like them. I mean, that's just what I like about all art forms, just in general anyway, is it's the most unique human expression uh, human beings have. I mean, I think that's our hopefully that's our legacy as a species down the road is that way of showing who you are, what you are. And I love the idea of bands, separate from just novelists or something. It's there's a collection of certain peoples that the whole makes up more than just necessarily all of the specific parts. And I think that with that group, uh, especially the first "Whomp That Sucker" and
And Angst.
"Angst in My Pants" were really one of their highlights, and I'm very proud to have been, been involved in it.
Those two albums are really special. Those are, as far as I can tell, those are the last two times they really recorded in a complete band context where you're all recording at once. And they put out tons of great albums since then. But that was the last time they really did the rock band as a full band onslaught.
Yeah, it absolutely it started like that. We learned the songs. Um, in a rehearsal studio. There were a few chords written out on a chalkboard, and Ron would play the songs pretty on a RMI electric piano, almost pre-synth, and we would. There was a sort of an arrangement sometimes, but it got fleshed out by playing, adding guitar, bass, drums, and I had a full of freedom to, beat wise and sound wise. I mean, at that point, they were looking for other people to for a band kind of sound again. And we were very used to playing with each other, the three of us, Les, Bob, and myself. And I kind of knew, Spark. So I was kind of, there was usually a title, but there weren't lyrics.
Yeah,
So, which to me is utterly fascinating. And when I write songs, I'm the other way around. It's the lyrics first.
that's
Um,
so interesting.
there would be some kind of like nonsense syllables, but there would be like a melody usually that Russell would just kind of waltz through. But yeah, from beginning to end, it was the five of us working.
With those two albums, it sounded like after, this is me conjecture, that
Uh-huh.
they just, after Terminal Drive, they just wanted to have some fun.
Oh yeah, they were still in the production deal with Giorgio Moroder, but
Right.
Moroder was like, okay, well, have a band again, and I have the studio in Munich. So you have to understand also for me, I had done a couple singles before then on some of my groups, my poppier bands, but it was suddenly the idea that this was the way records were done. You went to a studio in a foreign country for a month, and because of the way it was set up with Sparks, we would cut a song and they would work on it, finish the lyrics, then cut another one. It wasn't all basic tracks for a couple of days and then move on. It was kind of song by song. So we were around the whole time
Yeah.
and involved every day. And I'm so happy for that experience. Twice in a row with this producer Mac, that he before us he was working with Queen, Rolling Stones, Bowie, Under Pressure. I mean, it was like he was a rock guy,
Right.
and he loved working with bands, and the recording was super fun to do.
The one thing you did say, one of the many wise things you said when we talked in 2014, that one of the things that really stuck with me was that um, they became a little bit more studio focused in the recording, but the live recording, the live performance just got better and better.
Better and better, yeah. there was radio success too in the States, kind of for the first time because of this rock of the 80s format, the K rock thing. And a lot of songs were on the radio, especially Los Angeles. So we were moving up level wise playing and on the radio. And because it was such a visual band, there was so much television work too, from Saturday Night Live on. So there was, a bit of a focus on the group. I mean, it was timing wise, it was perfect for guitar based band again with kind of the new wave bands and that coming out.
I don't know if you've heard some of the work I've done with Christian Huey on his
Mhm.
All You Ever Think About Is Sparks podcast. We just spent, I think, three, maybe four episodes just breaking down Angst in My Pants.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we were both surprised that we'd spent that much time on it. And there were some themes that came back, but one of the big ones that came back was just how much David Kendrick made those albums successful. And
Oh, okay.
obviously you had Ron and Russell and Les and you had everybody and Bob. I mean, it was a great band. But David Kendrick propelled those albums in a way that is just so remarkable and sticks with us to this day.
Well, thanks. I mean, I have to say, like, especially I mean, no two songs have the same drum beats. Everyone was, I guess, one thing about me as a drummer is I'm also a lyricist, and I am not just listening to a bass player. I'm really in tune with like the subject of the song, where the lyrics are going, and I can fill in sort of unusual places from that. And even on that record, particularly like the decline and fall of me, like the lyric made me think of a backwards drum beat that almost sounds like it's on the verge of falling apart. I mean, I was playing into what I was hearing for the whole song. So I really appreciate, someone kind of hearing that. And I
Well,
appreciate males like were like fine with it. It was very nicotine. I mean, all the songs have kind of, there's a lot of unusual drum beats, and some of the songs are pretty good tempos. So,
let's just start with the one that you just. I want to talk big picture about the drumming,
yeah.
but let's just talk about a couple of that you mentioned, as well as "That's Not Nastasia." But the decline and fall of me is where your drumming first caught my attention. Obviously, I was listening to the whole album and I listened to it. Those days you listen to it A and B, and but then all of a sudden, decline and fall of me came on, and it was exactly what you just said. It was a backward drum beat.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it just fit, it seemed to fit with what was going on lyrically in the song. It seemed it was like bordering on chaos and coming apart and so yeah, that was kind of my mode. And then I mean the song Mustache was like so much fun to play and I just went all out with it on that too. Um
Well, if you look at the live videos from that period, you are playing all out. I mean,
yeah,
you had those big tubular drums at one point, and
right, right.
but you were just playing all out nonstop. And the first time I saw Sparks was with you. It was in Cleveland at the Agora
How
on
would you go? Okay.
the
Yeah.
Angst tour. Yeah, and you could just hear how the drums were so important to that mix. And
Yeah.
to what they were trying to do.
Yeah. Well, at that time too, they were, because there was some radio play in that, Sparks were really trying to be kind of a brand new band again. I mean, to the audience of 82, 83 and that. And right when I first joined them before we recorded the first record, I got to pick some older songs to do, but by then, and especially the Cool Places tour, it was all brand new songs. I mean, they didn't want to kind of delve into their past. I know like these days they'll pick and choose from decades of stuff, but at that point they were really trying to be, this is us in 1982. Here we are. Boom.
Yeah, they played a little bit of the older stuff, but they really
Yeah, when
focused
I
on the.
first joined, yeah, we before we went to Europe on the first tour, which was in France, um, they were open to, I mean, especially I guess to my suggestions because I liked them, and then I got to choose that they were to do talent as an asset, And the song I always wanted to play at home, at work, at play, which they didn't really do a lot all the time. So I got to pick a couple, here in heaven, just because I love the plot of that song so much. That is a fine one.
What was it like playing Dinky Diamond's parts? I mean, they were really quite unique too.
Oh yeah, no, I guess yeah, very much so. Um, the thing is, at home, at work, and play is a song with many, many parts. That's what I really like. I mean, I guess that's what I was tuning into. Um, a song like at home, at work, and play. I mean, there's certain bars go on longer. There's breaks and funny places, and this town ain't big enough for the clothes. The both of us has really great offbeat hits. I mean, that was a hit single, and that's a pretty weird song as a song. So I loved playing those parts, and I was very respectful to them. And I guess that's true with Devo days too. Alan Myers had some pretty interesting beats, in especially that first album had Uncontrollable Urge, and those songs were great assortments of unusual beats, and you know I would stay true to them.
Yeah.
His parts,
And
yeah.
and Harley started it all.
Yeah. And I even asked about doing whippings and apologies. They never wanted to do that.
No.
That,
Well,
but
they did do one from that album on their last tour.
right, right.
Which was
No, that
amazing.
was something, yeah. The we did a few songs, mostly the English period. That was kind of it. And we did Big Boy, I think, at a point.
It's
But it was
brilliant.
so it was deeply satisfying to play those songs with them. But it was also to have new songs that I felt were like up there, and still to this day feel they're up there with their absolute best records. So
Well, those are two of my all-time favorite albums. I mean, so you won't
cool.
have any art,
All
you won't
right.
have any pushback from me. Yeah, I want to talk
Yeah.
about That's Not Nastasia a little bit.
Mm.
Um, what's going on in that song?
Well, for some reason in those days, I was big on boleros, and it was like almost a joke. Uh, so I got to do a bolero to start the song because I there couldn't be one within the body of the song. But the topic of that song happened because of a street meeting. Nastasia Kinski was popular at the time, and she was in Munich, and we ran into her on the street and said hello. And afterwards, we were going, "Are you sure that was her?" Because it was kind of a popular look. So that kind of almost started the lyric idea. Was that Nastasia, or was that a
Right.
simulacrum of Nastasia? So that kind of started it. But then we were, it got more redundant, and it builds to this kind of crazy sort of Velvet Underground, psychedelic as Sparks ever got mix up at the end, where it just kind of kept piling stuff on. That sort of happened. That was one of the studio things at that time. It just kind of kept playing, and it started off, it was going to be very repetitious, kind of gunk, 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 Velvet Undergroundy thing. And then I piled on more drums and just
And then on
wanted to
top of
add,
all that, you had the tempo changing. There would be little,
right.
very little subtle tempo changes that if you weren't really looking for them, you wouldn't know them. But you were keeping up with all those tempos, which was, I'm sure
Yeah,
that was
that,
Ron saying, "I want to put in a 3/4 measure right here." That just one of them.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the ending of that song was great. That was never a live song, but that was a there were a couple of studio things that were just great because of the physical place. Um, it was set next to an abandoned or unfinished subway stop, and we were able to go into uh, the actual subway for a song called Upstairs, which had a lot of noisy percussion.
Hmm.
We literally ran a mic out to this subway station, and I got up on a ladder and banged on some pipes for one part, and these huge pieces of wood, I was like slamming them on the ground, um, in parts for that record. But it was like a brief out of the studio setting for sounds that were outside of regular drum sounds.
So
So,
when Ron writes these songs, and I'm thinking bigger picture here, not just the time when you were there, he has a sound in mind for the drums. Now you said that he gave you a lot of freedom, but in
yeah.
generally speaking, he has a composition in mind, and the drums are part of that composition. And he doesn't just rely on them on a straight 2/4 beat. I'd say on those two albums, maybe a little bit more than on other albums, but still, even
Oh,
on those
all
two albums, there's very little of that. And
yeah.
how do you, when you think about how Ron writes his songs and the role of the drums, what do you think about all that?
Well, to me, it's like totally up my. It's kind of more experimental, and I mean, he clearly knows, song structure, but like something like we had mentioned uh, Decline and Fall of Me, like there's a coda at the end that just comes in,
Mhm.
and the parts kind of come and go here a little bit. So the structures aren't always straight verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Um, and they can be drastically different from each other. I mean, I kind of tune into that as much as possible. Um, like now I'm playing in a group called Shushu that is very experimental song structure wise. So I mean, I kind of like that a lot. Devo had some of that same thing. They weren't all
Absolutely, absolutely.
standard beats at
Well,
all.
I'm glad you mentioned what you're doing now because people need to go and check that out. It's really good stuff.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, he doesn't hear the drums as just there to keep the rhythm. He hears them as an integral part of the overall arrangement, or at least that's how I hear it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much. But again, I guess, and why I'm so pleased, like it was such a marvelous introduction to making full albums was how much freedom I was given. Like, and it was like a artful respect of like you clearly know what Sparks is about, and we value your input, and I was trying a lot of different things, and they were accepted. They were fine. And the overall drum sound, I think, was a little bit Mac because one
Mm.
thing it's almost a little trashy in a cool way, like, and it's partially because the I did the whole record, live to a click with everybody, but then I overdubbed an extra snare hit in a tile bathroom.
On
So
what song is this?
the whole album
Ah,
almost,
ah,
like
okay.
8 of the songs. So that was part of it. There was like two snare tracks that they kind of mixed slightly different sounds on each one, and it kind
Mhm.
of made this overall uh, kind of sound.
Well, you, you, I should let people know that it's thanks to you I can play the song "Wacky Women" on my own drums because I don't know if you remember this, but I asked you at the end of the interview, "Did you do that da 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 da? Did you do that beat on the floor tom or on the bass drum?" And you said, "Oh, floor tom." And that,
Four
I had been
times.
trying to do it on the bass drum for years, and then you said
Oh,
that, it's
okay.
like, "Oh, wait, okay." And ever since then, I was able to play it.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you? It's such a brilliant beat, and it's so great that they were open to having you just play along.
Yeah, no, very much. I mean, again, that's keep saying that about those two records, especially. But yeah, of 10 songs, I don't think there's the exact same beat on any of them. The one they kind of went with a kind of more they took a uh for Angst in My Pants, there was a recording of it with different parts, and that one they ended up taking a 2 bar or 4 bar sample of me playing a beat and kind of made that into a loop that got used on that. And then I added some other percussion to that.
One of the things that Christian and I were talking about when we discussed "Angst in My Pants" was how for the first 7 songs in a row, there's no break.
Yeah.
There's like it's not until Instant Weight Loss, which I think is song 8, that the tempo slow, or 7, whatever it is, the tempo slows down a bit, and then it comes out with 2 or 3 at the end, which just go right back to where it was. But they really wanted to rock out.
Oh no, yeah, utterly. Yeah, and with both of those, yeah, it was very much that. And that was very much the way we played as a trio too. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Have you kept up with their later music?
Yeah, very much. I've seen him a number of times. Last year I wasn't able to see, but like the Hippopotamus tour I saw and the with strings, and yeah, I've seen him quite a number of times. And I, still catch up with him every so often. We still wherever their current coffee hangout place is, we'll go and yeah.
Do you ever speak with Steve Nister?
We've not enough. I mean, we've met a couple of times, but yeah, haven't really gotten to know him that well.
He told me when we talked, I asked him of all the drummers, which ones really stood out to you, and he said, without taking a break, in a heartbeat, he said, "Oh, Dave Kendrick." And he
Ah,
said, so I mean that's pretty high praise.
yeah.
Yeah, but he said Dave did some things that were just absolutely mind-boggling, just absolutely amazing, and he just loved emulating those
Oh,
rhythms,
nice.
things that
Okay.
he did. Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Very good. Well, thank you, Steve. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean that, yeah, as I said, I mean, just like they're an important band, in the whole context of rock stuff. And I mean, they've had a career that like over 50 years, and they've had a big moment in the last couple of years with the right film biography, and then their versions into film, and then keep going. I get it's such a lesson in perseverance and the cyclical nature of pop music. Um, after my time with them for like 10 years, they were not really a live group. I mean,
Right,
so there was a lot of fluctuation, but somewhere in the world, it's like they would hold on, tenuously, like something would happen in Germany, something would happen in Sweden, my time uh, was not super big in England, but it was huge in France, and it was their biggest time in the States till more recently. It was a top 40 foray into cool places, and um, but that's kind of that was Sparks was always their main thing, and so it was like kind of getting along and just staying true to your art, because I mean they went through a lot of different periods in that, but I mean their distinctive view of the world is lyrically is always it's still there, and so it's a good lesson that if you stay with the art of what you do, then it might not always be the the most popular thing, but stuff will keep floating around again.
it sounds like your time with Sparks. I mean, you've done so many great things with so many great bands, but it sounds like your time with Sparks was really something that's very special to you.
Yeah, it was the first kind of bigger group I joined as a drummer where like my part was like recognized and appreciated by people I admired and appreciated. So it was a great boom, it was a great way to start uh, into the field. Uh, but it just shows that they are like odd and unusual, and it's extremely unique music, and it's like lasted through 50 years, and where a lot of stuff has not. And I mean that speaks to the art of it, and it also speaks to the fact that weirdness or unusual versions of the world like are just fine and accurate.
This has been such a fun conversation, and I'm
Oh,
so
thank
glad
you.
that we
Yeah.
we got to spend a little time with each other.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone that like listens. And I'm happy those albums, have been re put out, and there's new versions. And I wish there were more other unfinished songs and stuff, but there's not too many. Uh
Really,
they're out there. There was one called One Nut Is All It Takes, I remember, that we worked up. But I don't think that one's ever reared its head. But anyway, yeah, no, I'm very
somebody somewhere has it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you much, Mike.
Well, thank you so much, David. This has been terrific.
All right.
All
Bye-bye.
right, talk to you soon.